When people call Singapore a communist country, they're not just being dramatic, they're pointing to something deeper. A nation where one party has ruled since 1965. A country with one of the world's strictest security laws, the Internal Security Act, that allows detention without trial. And a founding leader, Lee Kuan Yew, who once dealt directly with communists, yet crushed them without mercy. But here's the twist. Singapore was never communist. It was something far more strategic. Since independence in 1965, Singapore has been governed under the People's Action Party, or PAP. It built a model unlike any other, a blend of capitalism and state control, democracy and authority, openness and discipline. Economically, the country opened its doors to foreign investors, turned itself into a global trading hub, and used the state to drive industrial growth, public housing, and infrastructure. Politically, however, it stayed under firm control. No coups, no instability, no chaos. Just one ruling party steering the nation, decade after decade. The PAP saw itself not as left or right, but as pragmatic. Lee Kuan Yew and his team believed that Western-style liberal democracy could not work in a small, fragile island surrounded by uncertainty. So, they created what scholars later called a developmental state, one that valued performance, meritocracy, and stability above open political contest. The government took charge of housing through the HDB, built massive savings through the CPF, and held majority stakes in key industries through government-linked companies. It worked. Singapore grew from a struggling port city into one of the richest nations in Asia. But the success came with a cost. The same system that delivered prosperity also limited political freedom. The Internal Security Act, or ISA, gave the state power to detain anyone suspected of subversion. In the 1960s and 1980s, this law was used against left-wing figures, trade unionists, and even church workers accused of spreading Marxist ideas. Operations like Coldstore and Spectrum are still controversial today, with critics claiming that some detainees were merely political opponents, not actual communists. That's why some still describe Singapore as communist-like. One party dominates. The media is tightly regulated. Political speech is cautious. And dissent is often seen as a threat to national order. Add to that Lee Kuan Yew's reputation, a man who openly admired the efficiency of authoritarian leaders while keeping his own country fiercely capitalist, and the label starts to make sense to outsiders. Yet calling Singapore communist misses the point. The PAP was never Marxist. It was anti-communist from the start. It crushed communist movements, not joined them. It believed in private property, global markets, and foreign capital, things no true communist regime would tolerate. The difference was in control. The state never stepped back. It only managed capitalism in a way that kept society stable, productive, and unified. So what does that make Singapore today? An authoritarian democracy? A benevolent dictatorship? Or a unique hybrid that can't be copied anywhere else? That's the question scholars still debate. The system delivers world-class results: housing, education, safety, but limits political space and free expression. Some say it's a fair trade. Others say freedom has been quietly sacrificed for the illusion of order. What do you think? Has Singapore's model succeeded because of its strict control, or despite it? If you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to 2230, your trusted voice for deep stories that matter to Singapore and beyond.